Nicole Cash Saks was the first Black woman to play horn in a major U.S. orchestra, holding positions in the Dallas and San Francisco symphonies. She was destined to be a principal horn player and was sought out by orchestras of St. Louis, Chicago, and Cleveland when her career was cut short by the devastating realization that she had focal dystonia in her embouchure. Here is her story. Hi, this video today is part of my series on injuries with musicians. And this one in particular is again about French horn players. It's about focal dystonia. Now, let me first say what dystonia is. Dystonia is a part of it's a neurological disorder. So it comes from your brain and it affects somewhere in your body to do things that you don't want it to do. I don't know if Nikki knows this, but my mom has cervical dystonia in her neck and her shoulder. So she's constantly has her head turned like this and can't move it straight. And she's had it since she was like 40 years old. It's kind of like Parkinson's disease, and there is no cure for her cervical dystonia in her neck and shoulder. Well, with musicians, we often are getting focal dystonia, and it affects mostly piano players and guitarists, and then finally brass players. And there's really no cure. And what happens is it's a focused group, task-specific group of muscles that just stop doing what you want them to do. So for pianists, they'll stop being able to use a finger, and guitarists and horn players, it affects our chin. Sometimes it cramps. It's usually just in our embouchure, these little muscles. So I happened to find out that my really older good friend, she's not that old, we've just known each other for 25 years, Nicole Cash, but I call her Nikki, had focal dystonia. I found out about it, I think around 2015. I think that's when Gail Williams told me you had it, or maybe it was 2013. It was a long time ago.
Well, it was, I stopped playing in 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got my year off, but I remember I was in her kitchen with her in Evanston, and she said, "Did you hear about Nikki?" And I was like, "No." And she said, "She's stopped playing." And I was like, "No, not Nikki. One of the best horn players I've ever sat by. She stopped playing." So Nikki has suffered from focal dystonia and was forced to quit her job because she couldn't play. So I wanted her to talk to us today about what happened. How did you know? And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. So if you just want to say, like, was there a specific time, or did you just like, boom, it happened? Or what happened?
It's a really slow creep, actually. Now that I look back, so like I said, I stopped playing on July 2nd, 2016 was my final concert with San Francisco Symphony. But obviously hindsight is 2020. And if I look back, when I really knew something was a major problem was the beginning of that season in fall of 2015. But as I look back, I can recognize that there were issues that were starting probably as early as 2014, maybe even 2013.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So basically what happens is it starts as just a little tiny little like seed of a problem. You don't even realize it's a problem. You think, let me just, that note's not quite centering. Let me just, do some exercises in this area and it'll be fine. It's not a big deal. And then you realize a few months later, gee, that note still isn't centering. And now it's affecting, the adjacent chromatic, chromatic note. And it just kind of slowly spreads. And the more you try to address it and the more you try to work on it, the worse it gets. Like,
oh,
it doesn't seem like it really doesn't start as anything that seems like a major problem. It just seems like, I just need to practice here a little bit more. And the more you work on it, not only does it not go away, it gets worse.
So practice actually makes it worse.
Yeah, it's because what happens is dystonia, like it's kind of like it's an overtraining of the muscles, and some interruption occurs, and the neural pathways between your brain and those muscles that have been so trained, and those pathways have just been ground in over decades of use, decades of doing something the same way. For some reason, maybe you've changed equipment, or you injure yourself and keep playing on it, and you start doing things a little bit differently. And my understanding is those pathways get a little confused, and they stop understanding how to fire those nerves and those muscles.
Oh, wow. Did you change
And
equipment or something?
I did. I got a new horn. I got a different route. I switched
Oh,
mouthpieces, like little things that you wouldn't think would,
yeah, because I'm always changing my mouthpiece and
yeah,
my
yeah.
horn.
And there's nothing to say you shouldn't change your
I
equipment
know,
because you
because I'm
might
always
end
like,
your
what else
career.
is there? Can I get better?
Nobody really knows why. No, no, and some people, nobody really knows why some people are affected by it and other people aren't. I mean, maybe there's some kind of a genetic,
They say
you know,
25% of people I was reading have had a history of
mm,
Parkinson's or dystonia in their family.
mm-hmm.
So I'm like
Interesting.
kind of thinking it's going to happen to me one day. It's just going to be there because my mom has it, in her neck. I mean, she's had it a long
Yeah.
time. Did you ever notice that about my mom?
I actually did. And so when you were saying that, I was like, oh, I didn't know that that's what that was.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I like don't even see it on her anymore because I'm so
Yeah.
used to seeing her look like that. But then people will
Yeah.
be like, "What's wrong with their mom's head?" I'm like, you don't think that's normal? My poor mom. I love my mom. Sorry, let me have some coffee here. So,
All good.
that is that must have just been if that happened to me, like this is my reaction that would happen. I'd be like, my stomach would drop, and I'd be like, what did I do wrong? Stomach would drop, and I would get really nervous. Like it would make me even more nervous. And oh my god, I got to try it again. I got to try it again. I got to try it again. I mean, is
Yeah.
that kind of what happened with you?
Yeah. 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 So let me kind of tell you like the whole kind of evolution of
I
how
would I would love to hear that because
yeah.
all these
Yeah.
years have gone by and we haven't really even talked about this.
No, no, we haven't. So I would say the first time I noticed this little like kind of issue, and I will say like in the history of my um evolution and development as a horn player, like my mid, and I think a lot of horn players have issues in their kind of mid-low register, mid, like right at the bottom of the staff, like just figuring out how to really travel through that break area
Yeah,
and
the
keep your sound consistent.
C
C,
B
D,
E
E.
flat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay.
And so that was something that I definitely worked on in my, grad school years, for example, and just really trying to like solidify that area. And I think I did. Like I figured out how to like travel through that part of the register.
I remember
Um,
you playing there.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't. It became something that wasn't a worrisome area for me.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, it was an area that I had to work on, and I knew a lot of exercises and a lot of things to do to kind of get back to a nice centered, open, consistent sound there.
Is
So
that
at
when
some
you would do like Toyber 6A? Like, I
yeah,
remember you
probably a
playing
lot of
that
that Toyota stuff.
backstage, and actually, I remember being like, "What is that beautiful thing she's playing?" Like, yeah. So people don't know. People may not know. You and I sat next to each other in the Dallas Symphony for 12 years.
No, no, no. I think 8 years.
Oh, it was 8.
8 years. I
What
was
year
at
did you get there?
um
2001.
2001. Yes,
Yeah,
because
you left
remember,
in 9.
yeah.
Do I remember? Yeah, I remember getting
No, I
there.
mean, do you remember it was 9/11 was that
Oh
beginning
yeah,
of
and you
that
came over to
season?
my house. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just telling some people that you came over that day because
yeah,
you were single and we wanted to make sure you were safe.
yeah. I told the same story just a few days ago.
Oh, you did?
Maybe we
So,
were telling it at the same time.
oh, that's cute. Well, so anyway, we sat next to each other for 8 years, but we knew each other before that
Yeah,
from
from
college.
Northwestern.
And
Hmm.
she was a shy girl, the only
Was I though?
female, a little bit, yeah, the only female black horn player that I'd ever seen, and that she was so like, your hair was back in that little bun you would wear, remember?
Have time to be doing messing with my hair. I had to practice.
I, yeah, but I had like a little weird butch haircut. Um, anyway, we've known each other a really long time, and man, we would make each other laugh, make each other cry.
I mean,
Okay, anyway, you were working on your mid range.
well, I wasn't anymore, but like that's where the little seed of the problem reared its ugly little head.
Okay.
So basically, I think the first time I really noticed this was it was early in my pregnancy with my older daughter, Lila. So this would have been 2013, 2014. No, 2014, 2015, because she was born in 2015, August of 2015. So it was December of 2014, and it was very early in my pregnancy, and I had an issue that basically I had to take some time away from the horn. I couldn't play for a little while. I had to have a laparoscopic surgery. I had to take some time away from the horn. And then just as I was about to go back to work, this issue happened again, and I had to stay out. All in all, I was off the horn for about 4 or 5 weeks. And then when I finally did go back to playing,
like you literally nothing. You didn't play at all for 4 or 5 weeks.
Exactly.
Okay.
They said, like, the doctors were like, don't play.
Oh, is this because
anything that used my abdominal muscles and stuff?
Okay, so it wasn't because of your chops.
No, it wasn't exactly. It was unrelated to my chops.
Okay.
So then when I did go back to play, and we were playing Brahms Requiem, and first horn part on that, you got some stuff that's really got to pop out right at the bottom of the staff there, and I was kind of like,
yeah. That's true.
Why? I guess, and I was, I was just getting back into shape again, so I didn't really think too much of it. But I was like, well, it makes sense that this is kind of the last thing that came together in my horn playing. So as I get back into shape, this is something that I have to spend a little extra time with, and I didn't really think about it. But I never really fixed it, And
so what note was that? Like C?
It was like D,
D,
D at the bottom of staff, horn D. And then a few months later, I'm more, again, keep in mind I'm pregnant. So a few months later, I'm showing, and I go to play guest principal in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, were you scared?
Yeah, of course. Like, who wouldn't be?
I mean, because we both went to Northwestern. I didn't know you did that.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. Like,
oh damn. Okay. So you're sitting there and you're like,
but I don't like, so it's Shostakovich 8, and it's
big piece. Yeah.
What is it? And that has that big, like, huge exposed horn solo kind of right in that area.
It does. I can't remember.
Yeah. There's this huge, like, horn alone solo at the end of going into the 5th movement. I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
They all run together.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
So there's that. And then there's also, what was the piece?
Wait, you heard it while you were playing that solo? Like you heard something shaky weird or what?
No, I just remember it being like a little bit more, like I had to be more in my head about what I was actually doing. Whereas before I had to be more thinking about what I was doing in order to connect the notes and whatnot, and to make sure everything was still speaking. I didn't feel like the response was not as responsive, I guess.
So like, were you like, I have to make sure the C, the D.
Yeah, I was more in my kind of like, instead of just naturally flowing through, like
just like flowing and not thinking about that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But mainly the thing was in my warm up, I do all those like path exercises, those harmonic series quick. And I finally recognized that as I was descending down through the harmonic series, I was continuing to skip the same partial every time. Even as everything around it had this nice free open sound, I just kept skipping the same partial.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is very strange. Like, I feel like I'm doing everything, like everything we play by sound, not by feel. Everything sounded fine around it.
What did you just say? Play what?
Play by sound, not by feel. The whole like Clevengerism,
Okay. I wanted you to say that out loud. Okay. A lot of people don't think that way. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that definitely, I mean, it's fantastic advice, right? But I did, like, from that point forward, there was, as I'm looking back, I recognize I was having to do a lot more I just was in my head more. And up to that point, I'd always been a very natural, these were things I didn't have to think about, like how to you just keep putting air through the horn and the sound continues. But all of a sudden I'm doing all the things that I had always done, and the sound is stopping, or, I'm there's little glitches in the matrix. Right. So
what that was, so like you did December of 2014, you're pregnant, and you kind of felt it. You took 4 to 5 weeks off.
I didn't feel it at that point. It was when I came back from that time off.
So that would have been like January,
February.
And you flew to Chicago?
I was in Chicago in, I want to say it was late April, mid to late April.
And that's when, and you heard it more,
And I
and
could,
you
yeah,
noticed the partials.
that's when I kind of identified that it was up to that. For those first few months, I was like, oh, it's just kind of a generalized in this register, in this area of the range. And then when I was that week in Chicago doing my warm up, that was when I recognized, you know, like a light bulb, like I'm skipping this partial every single time.
Did you try doing anything else like scales?
Sure, of
instead?
course.
And it
Absolutely.
and did you
But it was
still skip
always
it?
descending. It was never ascending. It was always descending. And that's all, you know, as I learned more about dystonia and read more about dystonia, this is, you know, making me think, oh my gosh, it's happening in this very specific way every time.
Specific task.
Yeah. So like you're talking about, pianists get it. A lot of times they get it. There's a trigger in the way that you're playing. So a lot of times it's between the fourth and the fifth fingers.
Same thing with flutes.
Right.
Too.
Exactly. Same thing. And so for me, there was some kind of feedback happening when I was descending, trying to relax the aperture, that everything would seize up.
Oh, just like freeze, like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And it was more in here.
Oh, in your top lip?
For me, yeah, it can be.
Oh, because I have a friend that's in his down here.
Mm-hmm. It can manifest itself in different ways for every person.
So, did you get through the week okay in Chicago?
Yeah, it went great.
Okay,
it went great. They were like, "Please come back and audition." Please, They invited me back to play more weeks, and I was like, they invited me to come back and play some Ravinia.
Did you say no?
And I was like, no, because I was like,
you did say no.
I turned it down
because you knew there was something wrong.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So that's when you were like, something's wrong.
At that point, I didn't think something is really wrong. I thought, I'm pregnant. There's all kind of weird things going on in my body. And then as pregnancies happen, you just get more and more pregnant. And you got a baby sitting on your lungs. And, I didn't really, there were too many changes. It was not a controlled experiment. You know what I mean? There were just too many things going on for me to say, I think there's something wrong with my chops. I thought, your body, you've got weird chemicals going on. I was like, once I get this baby out and take some time off, then and come back to it and just get back in touch with my basics, everything is going to be fine. So
I like that you said get back in touch with your basics. So basically do your fundamentals. Meaning your scales, long tones, harmonic series.
Yeah.
So did you take time off that summer?
I did. Okay. I did. I finished out the summer season, and that was brutal. Like, it's all, pregnant or not, the summer season, like the end of any symphony season, I feel like you're just on your teeth at that point. You're just tired.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're doing way more programs per week. So
yeah,
you know how it is.
Yeah.
So I finished out the summer season, and the way my due date was, it was perfect. I had a month before I was due.
Oh, so you could really rest.
And at my biggest, I didn't have to worry about trying to play principal horn on things. And I had the baby, and I took another month off after I had the baby. And then I still had 2 more months before I had to go back to work, because I had 3 months of maternity leave. Oh, but it just lined up so that the whole orchestra was off the month before I was due. It was perfect. It was great. So I ended up getting 4 months instead of only 3 months. Do you know what I'm saying?
Did you plan that out?
Nope.
You know how some people are like, I think I want to make sure I've got at least 15 months off. No.
So I'm just going to make sure I get pregnant this month. No.
I'm just kidding.
So I was like, this is great. I can take 2 whole months off, which is longer than I've ever taken off the horn. I would always take off some time at the end of every season, my entire career. And I think that's a healthy thing to do. And then you come back and you get in touch with your basics and you do your fundamentals. But when I came back after having 2 months off, I really thought it was going to be a hard reset, unplug it and plug it back in. And I thought it was going to feel so fresh and so good. Like, I knew I wouldn't be able to play for very long, but I was going to have 2 months to get back into shape. And that first day that I went to play the horn, I couldn't make a sound at all.
Wow.
Like, nothing would vibrate. And then
could you do this? Could you do that?
I could free buzz.
Okay.
And I could buzz on the mouthpiece. It took took a few tries, but then I was able to buzz on the mouthpiece, and I did some buzzing. But then when I put it in the horn, and again, it's a feedback from the way it feels with the air coming back at you. You know, the resistance of the horn. I
Oh.
think it's a trigger for the
Oh.
dystonia
It is? Oh,
in some
okay.
way. Well, for example, when I was in the thick of it, when I was like really suspicious that I had dystonia, but I was still playing, when I
Mhm.
would play Wagner tuba, which feels completely different and blows
Yeah.
completely differently, it
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So the vibration of the air feeling it didn't trigger
Hmm.
it. I see.
Something's
Yeah,
got
it
it. There's
does.
something.
Wagner tuba play feels like a euphonium.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
There's like nothing.
it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I remember us playing that together.
Yeah.
Didn't we do that in the Tetons together?
We did. We did Bruckner 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that was a fun summer. Okay, so
So
then
anyway, yeah, I couldn't, and then it took me so long to get a sound out, and then when I finally did, it was just this really thin, like wobbly. I could feel my lips like quivering.
oh
It
God,
was super, 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 super scary.
I bet. Oh my gosh. I mean, because your
And
whole identity is is tied up in all that at the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
That's really awful.
yeah. So I spent 2 months like not making much headway at all, and
Okay.
just
This is like November.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Um, it's the end of September, so I'm spending, and I went back to work like around Thanksgiving, like right before at the end of November.
Okay.
So yeah, I spent like 2 months just like, and finally, like you're warming up, and if there's something that's not working, that you spend time there trying to get it going,
Did
and
you change
finally,
horns at this point?
no, I was
Okay.
back
All
on
right.
all the same equipment that I had been
Okay.
playing on for the last
Okay.
few seasons.
Yeah.
Um, and so finally, I'm like, well, I have to be able to. I'm going to have to ignore this and get back into shape, and play in other parts of the register. And so I did, but still, at the back of your mind, you're just like,
Yeah.
there
Like,
are
oh
some things
my.
I just can't do, and I'm not really sure why. And I went back to work, and I was like, really scared. I was like, things are not working right.
Did you tell
And
anyone in the section?
no, no, I didn't tell anyone. And I did get to the point where I was able to function. I was playing principal, so as long as something, I would get my we'd had the repertoire obviously, and when we got the assignments and I knew what I was playing, I would look and be like, okay, am I going to be okay here? Am I going to have to play this thing here? And on
So you
principal
were
horn, I
planning
was able.
around it.
You kind of plan around it. If I was second horn, I would not have been able to hide as long as I did, because you're playing there all the time.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
my job. Yeah.
So, but for the most part, I was lucky in terms of what we were playing, and you know, but I played that whole season just like scared that
Well, you
that
went that whole season
yeah.
doing that. Holy
Hmm.
moly. All the
Hmm.
way till July.
Yeah.
Oh, because you said 15. So 2014, you had Lila.
No,
Went back.
2015 I had Lila, and so 2015-16 that was my final season.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
And you didn't tell anyone in the section?
No.
Wow. Or they just like, you just didn't want them to know?
Well, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't really understand what's happening. I suspected.
Okay.
I did reading. I was reading about dystonia, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, this sounds a lot like what's going on with me, but I'm just
Did
gonna
you,
keep
well, how
trying
did
to
you get
track
your
it.
diagnosis?
I finally went and saw some neurologists.
In San Francisco?
Yeah, I saw a general neurologist. I had Kaiser, so it was an HMO. You have to like go through all the steps. So I went,
Oh,
made an appointment with the neurologist, and I described what was happening. And I was like, I suspect what I have is this. And he's like, wow, not many people have come in with their own diagnosis, but that sounds like what it is. And I'm like, wait, what? No, you were supposed to say, no, 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 no. There's any
give me a
number
Botox
of other
fig.
things it could be.
Did you try the Botox thing? I know some people
No,
do that.
no, 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 no. I never tried
Okay.
that.
I know my mom did. She tried it on her neck.
Yeah.
And she tried also like these really funny drugs that made her like pretty high.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I know, right? But she didn't like being high, so
Yeah. How
so
did the
then
Botox work for her?
it
Did
gave
that didn't
her a
work?
little bit of relief, but
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that Botox has been, somewhat helpful for like people with it in their hands.
mhm. Yeah, me
Um,
too.
but I haven't heard really any good news about it in the embouchure.
Then you
Not
went to two people in San Francisco.
So
Then,
I saw the first neurologist. He was just a general guy, and he's like, okay, you need to go see this movement specialist. So I went to see her, and she agreed. She's like, yes, it definitely sounds like that's what you're dealing with. And I said, well, what is it about what I'm telling you that makes you think that it's dystonia? And she said, well, the fact that it happens the same way every time, like the approach is the same, you know. And so then I was like, okay, well, clearly I have to go see Stephen Frucht out here in New York. So he's
is he like the guy?
Yeah, he like specializes. He's a former musician himself, and he was a violinist, and he developed dystonia.
Oh,
So he has a very vested interest in it. But he's basically who many of the big name musicians who have this diagnosis. That's where they've gotten their definitive diagnosis from.
okay.
So I flew out, and at that point I had to tell Bob. I had to tell Bob Ward, and I said,
because we were summer.
This was it was end of June.
Okay.
Like it all just kind of like basically at that point in the season, I was like, if this truly is what it is, if I get this definitive diagnosis from Dr. Frucht, I'm done. Because
how come you decided that?
It was a miserable season.
Yeah.
And you and I have both been around players who've been struggling audibly and visibly and audibly struggling over a long course of time.
Yeah.
And in your 20s you think you're invincible and that will never happen to me, and what is wrong with them, and why don't they just practice more?
Yep.
And if they can't fix it, then why put themselves through this, and why put everyone else through this? And I did. I told myself, after kind of being exposed to witnessing other people struggle in that way, I was like, I'm never going to do that. I'm just never going to do that to myself. I'm never going to do that to my colleagues. I'm never going to do that to the music. It's just, I just like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And,
I can see that.
Yeah. So I just said to myself, I'm just not going to struggle like that. I'll put it away and do something else.
That's a hard decision to make though.
Well, when I said it to myself in my 20s, again, I'm like, I'm never going to have to make that decision because that's never going to happen to me. Right.
I think I would have done what you did though.
Yeah.
If that happened to me.
I don't know. I mean, you have other interests and you have a full life away from the horn. And I think it makes it easier. I think it makes it easier for people who have a diversified life. I think it would be really, really, really difficult if I was one of those players who just lived and breathed and ate and slept and drank horn.
You played like one.
Thank you.
You did. I mean, it was like you'd come in to play and I'd be like, I don't sound that good. Nope. Nope. And
you sounded and still do sound fabulous.
You taught me the path. The path. The harmonic series thing, you showed me how to do that, and I've always been really grateful. Every time I teach it to someone, I always remember you teaching it to me.
Yeah, in Vail, right? We were in Vail one summer.
Yeah, in that little condo.
Yeah.
No one else had ever taught me that before. I remember asking Dave Crable to help me with it, and he was like, "Just get up there." Like, I don't understand. Like, you have to spell it out for me. So physically, a lot of crap happened to you that you made you quit the horn. What did this do to you mentally? Did you have to get psychotherapy or?
While I was still playing, like trying to play?
Yeah, that and after. When you have to put it to.
I definitely went to therapy after.
Yeah.
I wasn't in therapy at the time. I did acupuncture. I tried some other things, but I definitely got therapy afterwards. And, not only was I making this transition in terms of not playing the horn anymore, but my husband and I completely uprooted and moved. So,
I heard you did that.
To be closer to family. And it was a fantastic decision. And I know that now. But at the time I was like, what am I doing? I'm one of these women who like moves with her husband and like
with her husband.
Yeah, her husband. But you know what I mean? Like I was
you were
always
really
proud of the fact that I was independent.
You made it on your own.
I was never going to depend on anyone else. And
you were really really successful
Yeah,
Yeah.
on my own. But yeah, so we moved. We're like living in this weird, like Long Island, New York. Long Island. Like I never, ever, ever would have thought I would have been living in Long Island, having followed my husband to some random place where I don't know anybody. And
Oh gosh, yeah.
it was a lot of transitions, and him too. Like it was hard for him too. He loved the Bay Area.
You decided to move there because you had a baby and you wanted to be near family?
Yeah.
And because your job was gone.
My job was gone, and I had no intention of going back. When I was on medical leave at that point, all pieced together, I had 3 years to think about it, and I could have still gone back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I knew it was just not something I wanted to do battle with.
So their contract gives you 3 years medical leave.
We had I can't even remember the details of it. You had a certain amount of sick leave, then a certain amount of long-term medical leave, and then a certain amount of long-term disability that you're at a reduced pay. That you're getting part of your pay from the orchestra and part of your pay from the state of California, disability insurance.
Oh, okay.
Disability coverage or whatever that you've paid into.
Yeah. So
at which point, when that ends, then I had to resign my position, but I also had a long-term disability policy as a part of every musician in the orchestra got a long-term disability policy as a part of their benefits, which pays me a certain amount of my salary up until retirement age.
Wow. So emotionally, it was
brutal.
Yeah, because Nikki Cash, or Nicole Cash, was known as this all-star horn player, going to take one of the next principal horn jobs of a major orchestra.
Mm.
And she quit to go raise her babies in Long Island. And everyone was like, huh?
Right. I know. It was completely never like stay at home mom. And I still it's still like it's a conflict. It's an inner conflict sometimes.
I bet. You were a big deal. Really big deal. I mean, you were a big deal in college.
Mm.
So how old were you when you did that?
When I stopped?
Yeah.
Playing? Well, let's see, I'm 44 now. So I was like 39.
So you were a hot shot from like 18 to 39. That's 21 years.
And that makes it easier too to stop, because it's like
you did it.
I did it. I did what I set out to do, and I saw what it was like. And good and for better or for worse. I mean, there are definitely things about the musician lifestyle that I do not miss, and that I really hated when I was doing it.
Yeah, I remember you saying, "You think I want to be here on a Sunday? I want to go out to brunch." Remember, I would complain about Sunday.
I love brunch. Who doesn't love brunch?
No, I'd be like, I don't want to be here today. I don't want to be here today. Do you think I want to be here? I always think about that on Sundays when I'm sitting there like,
we having a mimosa right now. Bottomless.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's the musician lifestyle of 4 concerts. Well, Dallas was 4 concerts a week. How many did they have in San Francisco?
4 in San Francisco too.
Wait, I have one more question. Do you like to listen to classical music still?
Sometimes. I do it for several years after I couldn't. Unless sometimes you really need a cathartic cry, and that's when I would put on some Brahms or some Mahler or something. And
thank you for talking with us today about focal dystonia, a disorder that affects way too many French horn players and brass players. But there is life after playing, and she can still enjoy life and music again. And we will always remember Nikki and how much she contributed to the horn world.
All right. And thanks for having me, Haley.
All right. Bye.